I would love to share that each individual should spend time identifying what it means to be successful. Because often society, social media, other people define that for us. And when it's defined for you, you will end up chasing someone else's goal and not your own. So if you can define that for yourself, then you can truly look and measure your own success based on your own standard and not living someone else's dream.
Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Unleashed. I'm joined in the studio today by my good friend, Natty Bandasak. I just want to let you know something. You guys are here because you want to make a difference in your life, and that's what I'm dedicated to doing. My name is Edward Collins. I'm your host today. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been building and scaling multiple businesses up to and through 6 and 7 figures each, and I've been helping business owners just like you do the exact same thing. And the purpose behind Entrepreneur Unleashed is to give you an opportunity to learn vicariously through the trials and triumphs of other business owners who have been through the things that you may be going through right now. I believe the best way to shortcut that journey is to learn from others. So let's get started. Natty, thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure, man. This is a beautiful space.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great team.
It's definitely still a work in progress, just like everything in life. But it's been a labor of love.
No, it gave me pretty much like widened my perspective already because we just got a studio. So now I'm always looking for new ideas and just to connect with you. Every time we talk, I always learn so much.
Well, Natty, one of the things that I have a major advantage over that the audience doesn't is I know you. So what I'd like you to do, if you wouldn't mind, just take a few seconds, few minutes, whatever it may be, to tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Dr. Natty Bandasak. I have my doctorate in physical therapy. I have my own brick and mortar practice where I scale from 0 to 7-figure within 4 years. But really, I think what contributed to my success is really my upbringing. So I immigrated here from Thailand at the age of 12. At that point, I saw my parents work tirelessly. I helped them start a Thai restaurant, and I also saw them failing at the Thai restaurant business. And from there, that's where my curiosity when it comes to running business and scaling business started coming in, where I'm like, all right, I've seen what works and what doesn't work. I've seen what doesn't work more than what works.
Yes.
So I say, all right, now what do I do? What do I have to do differently in order to scale my practice without sacrificing my integrity as a healthcare provider, without sacrificing my soul as an individual, and without sacrificing my time that I have left in my life and the time that I want to spend with my family, and because all those stuff's important to me. And you know, I always try to go against the grain of, because you've seen people work tirelessly. They always say you can always work more, you can always work harder. And you know, in 2019, my dad passed away suddenly at the age of 58. And from there,
so young.
Yeah, it was out of nowhere. And again, he was on a work trip with my mom. And for me, that really, honestly, I think just from that experience alone, it's increased my growth as a person tremendously. And it had me reflect on my life for a long, long time. And, you know, I was in Spain during that time, and I had a lot of time to think. And I say, all right, well, if I'm going to do things differently, what do I have to do? How do I have to turn my life? And how do I make sure that the work doesn't run my life? So that's pretty much the framework I'm approaching. So when you guys are listening to me, and it might sound a little woo-woo, to me, that's where how I approach life first before I approach business.
Well, I think it's really important for us to go back a little bit because you use the phrase sacrifice, and you said, I don't want to sacrifice X for Y. I don't want to sacrifice this for that. Talk a little bit more about the concept of sacrifice, because as a business owner, there is a need to sacrifice sometimes. So how do you balance that out? Like where's that particular fuel gauge, if you will, with regard to what you're willing to sacrifice versus what you're not?
So I think this depends on the stage of business you're in, right? So the way I looked at it is when I saw my parents work in the beginning, they were always trading time for money, right? And in the beginning, as a clinician, as a business owner, I was trading time for money, right? So when I see a patient, I was giving an hour of my time for X amount of dollar I was charging, right? And then as I do more and more of that, what I realized that the bell curve of the satisfaction where I'm making more money, but yet I have less time. And with less time, there's not much I can do with my money. If anything, it's bring me more unhappiness. And I was probably at probably 20 pounds heavier, was not as healthy. I was not doing well. Like all the training just kind of go to the waist. So my core values start slipping a little bit because fitness is a huge thing of mine. So at some point I'm like, okay, the next level, what is it going to be? What do I have to sacrifice? So, and, you know, all the books that we read, the mentors that we have, you know, everyone always talking about, well, now what you want to do is you want to sacrifice money to get your time back.
Right.
And then from there, with the time that you have, you can then scale up or have a better leverage. But
well, I think that comes down to like an abundance mentality too,
Yep.
because when you're focused on just trading your time for dollars, a lot of people get into this belief system that, oh, I'll just give more of my time and get therefore more of my dollars. And it is interesting to see when that shift takes place in a lot of individuals, because I get the pleasure of being able to speak to business owners all over the country at all different walks of life and all different stages of their entrepreneurial journey. And I see that it comes to a point where they're sitting back and saying, I'm willing to give my time so that I can make money. But then when they have that shift in mindset where, no, I'm going to start giving my money to buy back my time, that's an amazing shift. And usually that's when I start seeing people being happy in business. Would you say the same?
100%. And I can vividly tell you when I made that mindset shift.
Okay.
And it was the beginning of last year, where I remember talking to my therapist, and she was like, how's it going? Because we always do reflection at the end of the year.
Okay.
And for me, I'm like, hey, I think this is the first time where I feel like I am actually a business owner who happened to be a physical therapist. Where before, for the past 2 years, it was, I am a physical therapist who happened to own a business. So making that shift, like my world kind of turned upside down a little bit. The decision making, like all the decision making process, all the way I make decisions, it's on the overarch. I was like, okay, as a business owner, what do I need to do, right? So before it was like, all right, as a therapist, I would have to come in every single day. I work Saturday for 2 years straight. I mean, we don't go on vacation or anything at all. And now when I start looking like, as a business owner, if I go in on Saturday, what am I giving up when I go in on Saturday? What work am I not doing, right? And the biggest shift, like because of that mindset shift, it's allowed me to tackle one of the biggest, bucket lists. And you and I talk about bucket lists, and I don't know if you guys know, but Ed told me that his bucket list was to get a JD and be a lawyer, and he did that during COVID. And to me, it was like, dude, this
just
guy,
before, but yeah.
I was like, this guy's super badass, like, and I love that, right? And to me, if I hear you doing that, I'm like, oh my God, like what else am I not doing in my life? And I love that, right? Because you push the bar forward. So, as an immigrant, English is not my strong suit. I hate writing. I do not like public speaking. Here we are.
You're great at it though. You really are.
Yeah.
So,
but here we are. So last year, after I made that mindset shift, I dedicated a lot of time writing my first book on ACL rehab, which is a niche that my clinic specializes in. We published that in March. And to me, that was the ultimate test that, like, this is how you actually trade time. This is how you trade, pretty much trade time to get some money, right? You do work once and just get paid forever.
Oh,
every single month.
Make once is definitely a huge thing.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you're going to invest your time, effort, and energy and financial resources, because if you're investing time in this area, you're not investing it in this area. So it is a financial commitment as well. If you can create something that continuously generates revenue going forward, that's definitely a beautiful system to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at the evolution of a lot of individuals, like the vast majority of the world is populated by employees. That's just is what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that because employees serve a purpose within the entire ecosystem. But what you did is you graduated from an employee mentality to becoming self-employed. And that's beautiful, especially in your niche, because you're a specialist within your niche, but you're a self-employed professional service provider. What I found a lot of the times, and I want to know if this is true for you, is that a lot of individuals who start off in that, because they're gung-ho, they want to be a business owner, but they end up really just becoming a job owner. And as a professional service provider, you can make way more money than when you were just an employee, but you still cap out because you're now competing with the other professional service providers within your ecosystem that potentially get into an environment where you're now racing to the bottom with regard to how much you charge, because it then becomes a pricing issue. I know your situation because we're friends, we talk a lot. You got to a point where you made a shift in your business. You made a shift from being that professional service provider who owned the job of doing what you were doing to becoming a business owner, which is implementing systems, leveraging labor, leveraging technology, et cetera. What was that process like for you? How did you make the decision to do it, and what was it like?
I mean, that's a great question. I always come back to that. I think the first thing is I was being realistic with myself and figure out what I was not good at. Because at the end of the day, at that point, I was still a liability to my own practice.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if I'm a liability, what am I liable for? What am I not good at, right? And I think you and I talked about before where like Tony Robbins talked about, 3 different key players that you need in your business, right? The artist, the entrepreneur, and the operator. And I say, okay, based on these 3 things, right? I'm definitely an artist because I love my craft. Like I like being a clinician, getting outcome. I love that, right? Entrepreneur to me is like more marketing and sales. Like I grew up in retail. I work in a restaurant business. Like I can do that. And then the least thing I cannot do was operating.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm right there with you, by the way.
Yeah. So like, like that's why you and I can have this kind of big conversation all the time, right? So as soon as I realized like I am not good at operating the day-to-day stuff, I say, okay, now I need to get someone that can do that for me. So I just go based on, hey, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm not good at. And I was like, since I'm not good at this, why don't I just stop doing that and then start looking for people that can invest their entire time to do the things I'm not good at. So that's where it first started. So,
but that's a mindset shift. How did you make that shift? Like, what was it that you were either exposed to, or what guidance did you get to recognize that, hey, listen, I have this zone of genius, and it's not over here. I need to find someone else over here to do this. Like, how did you do that?
So, pretty much I got my butt kicked, and it led me into that. So I'll elaborate on this story, where, in the beginning we were very small, and there were 4 of us, 2 clinician and another virtual assistant. And I ran my business as my parents did, as a family-owned business. And in a family-owned business, there's no accountability, right? Because the overarch thing is when someone does something wrong in the family, you just say, oh, no, that's family.
Right.
And it's okay. So the culture was extremely bad. And during that time, I had someone who worked for me that went to my PT school, so we were close. And, he came from a very operational background, but also a clinician. So I was like, hey, let me just recruit this person, come into the office, help me run the operation stuff. So, in theory, on paper, looks great. So after a year in, things didn't look so good. And I started seeing some shift or like some pitfall when I was away in Florida. My wife needed to get surgery. We found the best surgeon down in Florida. I took 2 weeks off. On the surface, everyone said everything's great. I came back. It was horrible. There's a lot of friction to the point where when I walked into my clinic, and I just literally built this clinic that I had, 5,400 square foot, beautiful stuff.
It's a huge clinic.
Yeah. And when I walked in, Ed, I can tell you, I was like, I don't want to be here. That's how toxic the environment got.
Wow.
And I didn't know what to do.
And I'm sure there are a ton of other practitioners out there that have gone through a similar experience.
Yeah.
Like, how did you not let that completely derail you?
Well, it was a lot of support, a lot of good friends. I have friends from my other mastermind group who would be on the phone with me, talk me through, who has 10 years of experience. And, my wife was the biggest support for me. And I had to make the hard decision of, hey, I'm not going to let this dictate how I run this, because I was losing control. And it's not that I need control, but I do want to have a say that what I create.
It's your business.
Yeah. So I had to make the hard decision of letting people go. And that was probably the hardest thing I ever did, and also the best thing I ever did. Because of that, what it forced me is like, all right, cool. I really need to create a strong culture that mirror what I stand for, what I'm about as a person first, rather than just about the business. And then as soon as I made that decision in my head before I did the firing, I already say, okay, who do I need to make sure just protect the downside? Because all it is, like, I'm just like, I'm gonna lose money. I don't want to lose that much. What can I do, right? Who can I pull that I have now that can go with me into the future, right? Because obviously, when you're away from your business, you don't know what's said, what's going on, who's saying what, and all I'm saying is like, all right, let me just go and talk to everyone to see where they're at. If they're still on the same mission, on the same path, and if I explain to them the vision, what I'm trying to do, are they still going to be part of it, right? And I made a decision in my head that if I have to go back solo again, I'm okay with that, because I know that at least I hire someone who's an operator, that I'm not starting alone. I'm not starting from the beginning. I have all this experience with me. So I think that the concept of willing to lose it all in order to rebuild something bigger excite me, and that got me over my fear.
You were willing to sacrifice who you were in that moment and what you had in that moment in order to win what you have now.
Even my current success in that moment, at that point, we were probably close to having $1 million practice. And I said, hey, if I do all this, worst case scenario, I'm dropping down to a $250,000. But I'm okay with that because I was like, it's a short-term pain that will build to a bigger vision. And I don't know if a lot of people would do that because I also never allow myself to get too comfortable. Like every time on my birthday, I go to my hometown, I sit in the bus stop, I would take the bus to go to work. I would get on that bus. I just remind myself back all the time.
That's amazing.
I go back to the ShopRite that we used to go grocery shop, and we used to bring like a bag of cans, and you would just put the can in, get 5 cents. So I go back to all the route, my origin of where I came from, and I say, well, if I can come from that, like this is nothing.
Yeah. That is an amazing reframing that you're engaging in. You're basically saying, okay, I've achieved X, but I'm not going to forget where I came from, and I'm going to allow that to continue to motivate me to put one foot in front of the other and make continual progress. Which we've known each other now, and we've had tons of conversations about this. You are making continual progress. What would the audience, like, if you gave them a few seconds to jump into what you've been doing lately? Tell us a little bit about that.
Lately, what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to have more FaceTime with my employees. Okay. And I think our last conversation at my clinic, and I just feel you guys need to listen to that. Ed and I really spent a lot of time over dinner talking about how do we coach our employees, just like how we would coach if we take on a coaching clients. And I think that idea excited us so much that we just literally
how do we get it done? Exactly.
So for me, that's really excited me because now I have a team of people. Like we grew we went from 4 back to 2, and now we're at 13. And now with the 13, I have different department, and I get what I look forward to is that those department meetings, those one-on-ones where I get to be like, hey, what's going on? What do you need help with? Where are we going with your personal life? Because you and I know that it's the professional life that should fuel the personal life, right? It's again, business is a vehicle to support my life of where I want to be. And again, professionally, everyone needs a job that they can feel fulfilled in, so that way they can then do the same thing on their personal life. And to me, the best thing that happened to me is that I was always working when I was younger. And another good thing that's happened to me was I had people who gave me opportunities in the past, even though I didn't have the skill set, but at least they know that I was coachable. And what I'm trying to do now is do the same thing where if I have an opportunity to give someone, even though it's raw talent, but they have that X factor, they have that grit, and they're self-starter, I was like, why don't I give them a shot? And that's exciting me every single day to see progression, to see one of my employees from day one go from buying a house to now getting married. Another employee just got engaged. Like to me, that's great.
Yeah, not only do you get to witness it, but you're actually participating in it too, because you're providing the ability for them, one, to thrive within whatever the ecosystem is that you're building for them, the role that they're in. You also give them the opportunity to expand beyond the role too. When we were talking that day over dinner, one of the things that I took away from that conversation that you actually brought up, I don't know if you remember this, was how could we create almost like a system that does this on a continuous basis where you can track it. Tell me a little bit about like what you're considering doing within your practice.
So, after our conversation, what I've been trying to do more is, obviously we do our bi-weekly scorecards, getting people to understand it. And now what I'm really excited about with all the new space is that we have the entire org chart mapped out. And everyone has their own individual tasks that they're responsible for, right? And what we can do now is say, hey, how do you want to move up? What skill set do you need? What role do you see? You see all these people doing these things. What else do you want to tackle next, right? And then I can candidly tell them like, hey, I know you want to do that, but if I can offer a suggestion, here's your strong suit. I think you might be better here. Can we give it a go, right? And then from there, they can kind of see the progression. And what I want is for them to like flip the card. That's an idea of like, hey, based on the card that what you're doing right now, what can we take away from so we can add some? And if we take that away, who do we give it to? Because now we level someone up as well. And then the conversation would be like, well, if someone were going to take away your task, who would that be? So now they play an active role of like, okay, cool. Like I get to move someone up. I get to move myself up. So the overarching theme is less individualistic behaviors, more of a we mentality.
Exactly. When you're looking at taking your employees to that next level, you first have to get to the next level, right? So how are you doing that? Like, what are your own personal goals with regard to growth and advancement and just improving yourself? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
So, just doing something that I'm uncomfortable with.
Okay.
Like flying down here, having a conversation with you, and sitting in a room where I know people know a lot more than me, and just be willing to just listen and be like, oh man, what are they taking? And as I'm getting older, all I'm trying to do more is just shed old beliefs, and most of it is really ego driven, and to say that like, hey, again, it's going back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where like when you think you know something, you actually don't,
right?
And just trying to get to that curve where like, wow, do I really know it that well? And the more I teach my staff, the more I can really gauge like how well do I know that? Can I sum it up in a 3-sentence? Right? Can I talk to it at length, or can I make it as simple as possible? Right? So I'm just trying to get to that point where I'm constantly just refining my message, finding my voice. Is again, you know, you and I talk about fitness all the time. It's like going to the gym. You do almost the same routine, but the stimulus is different.
Yes.
And as you get older, you know you can't throw your body against the wall like you used to. So you have to be smarter, more tactical, more strategic with what you do. So I look at the way I build myself personally from a spiritual and emotional and anything physical standpoint. That's how I need to level up first. I have to take care of my body. I have to take care of my mind, put myself in a good space. And then from there, what dragon do I need to slay? And I just go there, slay some dragon. And then the best part is when I have my team with me, we're doing all this thing. They know what I'm trying to work on. They see my progression. And all I'm trying to tell them, like, hey, listen, I'm working on myself every single day. Like, there's no reason that you cannot do it, right? Like, you know, we took on a new space. I tell them, like, this space is as much for me as it is for you. I say we paint everything black. We make sure that you can write on the wall. Just because we're going against the grain. We're going against whatever the establishment says. Like, who told you that you can't write on the wall? Right? Now we can write on the wall. Why don't we do it?
Okay. When you look at that growth that you're going through and you witness it in your team, what would you say is the thing that has led most to the growth? Like what either have you done, have you been exposed to that's led most to your personal growth?
I think exposure is huge. For me. I'm a visual learner. I like to emulate greatness when I see it. I'm also someone who's very humble enough to say that, man, I'm just dumb. I don't know that. Why don't I just follow the footsteps of someone who already did it? You know, the concept of standing on shoulder of giants is huge for me.
Huge. Like,
I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, I'm that guy, and my wife disliked this. When we go somewhere, when we go overseas, I ask for direction. She was like, why don't you just figure it out? I was like, it's a waste of time. I got somewhere to be. Unless you want to explore together, then that's fun.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, but if we need somewhere to be, I want to ask for direction. And that's always been me. Where we met, especially in the circle that we're in now, I forced myself to get in there. You know, did I feel ready that I was in there? No. There was a lot of imposter syndrome in that. But as soon as I get in there, I was like, okay, this is uncomfortable. I don't know anyone. You and Jose were the first people that I met. And, you know, after 5 minutes conversation, I was like, I can fly home right now. I got everything I need. Just talking to you guys over poke, right? So putting myself in that uncomfortable situation to learn from other people, I'm like, this is where I need to be. If I just learn, keep moving up the ladder, learn from people who've done it, I have something to chase. And the coolest thing is I can always go back to, you know, my village, my company, my people, and say, hey, guys, here's what I learned. And we had a yearly meeting, and I say, you know, I want to be a resource for you guys. Whatever you need. Like, I probably know someone that can solve your problem. Right. You know, if I can do it, I'll help you find the answer.
I think that's one of the things, though, that really sets you apart from a lot of other business owners is that you are willing to learn. And I know that sounds a little bit like foo-foo, but at the end of the day, you have the right mentality because Epictetus is a philosopher. He once said that it's nearly impossible to teach a man something he already knows. But the reality is we all think we know everything, especially as a business owner. You think, oh, especially if you build a business and it's a good going concerns, making revenue. Oh, yeah, I know it. But the reality is there's so much more that you don't know, that you believe you do know, that if you're willing to just accept that you may not know it and reach out to others to give you guidance, you can make major steps into the direction you actually want to go.
Yeah.
When you look at your career over the course of just the past few years, like, how is it different today than it was when you were just getting started? Like, what are the major differences?
I can easily say I'm more fulfilled today.
Okay.
I'm more fulfilled in regards of my impact scale is much bigger because we have 4 clinicians on the team. That's more people that we help within the past year than I did within the first 2 years working alone, right? And the job that I have created for people, that's also an impact scale. And the ability to, just challenge some old thinking and have people say, oh, you know what? That's a good way of doing it. To me, that's huge. So my life is way more fulfilled. I'm happier. I have dinner with my wife earlier, way more. I can't eat anything past 6 anymore because I just don't get good sleep.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of revert back to like, okay, now let's go keep taking care of yourself, because all this hard work, it means nothing if you don't get to enjoy it. And I try to enjoy it each and every day. And, what's best about having, someone like you that I can text and I can call is, even with growing the business and starting a new adventure or whatever it is, I can always like, Ed, what is the most ethical, legal way I can do this, but not to grow, but really to protect what I have.
Yes.
And I think, I'm in the mindset now where rather than keep grow, I'm just like, okay, how do we get deeper in what we do? How do we provide more value and then grow slowly, steadily, and grow through risk mitigation? And I think before you came to my office, I mentioned to you, like, yeah, I just shut down a satellite clinic, where 2 years ago, that would hurt my pride. Because like I had this arbitrary goal of like having 5 clinics.
Right.
If someone asked me why 5 not 4, why 5 not 6, I can't even tell you.
Right.
Again, it's ego driven, right? Now I made the decision to shut that down. I was like, okay, well, because we're going to niche down and make this the place where it's pretty much a training ground for other clinicians to come in who owns their own clinic and be like, hey, this is how you do things ethically and make profit and, have growth for employees, right? And again, it's a learning process for me. Again, this just is a dream of mine that I have, right? Obviously, there's going to be some obstacle we face along the way, but I think that's the best part about it. Like, I'm looking forward to the obstacle because I'm no longer alone.
Yes.
I have a great partner. I have a great team behind me. So whatever I tackle on, I know I have a good team that can be like, all right, hey, let's do this together.
Yeah, making profit ethically is an amazing thing, right? Because the reality is this: if you just boil everything down in economics to this one phrase, it's true. Money follows value creation. If you go out into the marketplace and create value, that is an ethical process. If you're creating value for others, you're doing a good thing for society, and money comes. So when I sit back and I talk to business owners and they're like, I'm so frustrated, I don't know how to do it, it comes down to this. Find where there's value needed, create that value, and you will do phenomenally well. One of the things I want to make sure that we do is touch on something that's important, I think, for a lot of our particular audience. We live in an Instagram society right now. Everyone sees the flash, the perfectly curated photos, the perfect videos, the great clips from podcasts. But the reality is it's not always great, right? There are definitely hard times that business owners have to go through. I mean, if you've been in business any length of time, you're going to go through some significant struggle. I'm curious, what has been the most difficult thing that you've been through as a business owner?
I mean, as a business owner, to make that decision to let people go, and to digress in progress a little bit, and then to leapfrog in progress, that's the biggest thing. And it's all going back to ego, right? Because if I want to show true linear progression, which again, if I go back to working out or anything, nothing is linear, right? You have to deload before you can progressive overload again, and then do all that. So, I think that's probably the biggest challenge is admitting that I'm wrong when I'm wrong, admitting that I don't know when I don't know, and just listen. Like,
how did you learn that though? Who taught you to be willing to admit when you're wrong? Because not everyone's able to do that.
So I think that's more me, and also my wife.
Okay.
She's great at like reminding me when I'm feeling myself a little bit, and she's great. Oh, you're feeling yourself a little bit today. and I love that, right? That's the relation. And again, I wouldn't be where I am without her. And her support, the fact that I'm here is fantastic. And I always have this picture of starting a business that I grew up. So I moved from Thailand, grew up in New York, right? Rockland County, really nice, close to the city. But growing up, I view business as me going to New York and getting jumped by 4 guys wearing Timbs. So in my head, it was like, how do I make sure, rather than getting jumped by 4 guys wearing Timbs, I just get jumped by 2 regular guys wearing sneakers. So how do I make that easy? Because I'm going to get my ass beat no matter what. Yeah. So how do I lessen the damage?
Okay.
Right? Do I have to fight Mike Tyson, or I can just fight someone else?
Right.
Either way, punches are being thrown at me.
Yes.
So that's always my approach.
Yeah.
And I'm always the grass. I'm sorry. I'm always like super optimistic, right? And growing up in Thailand, 99% is Buddhist. So as part of the rite of passage when I was growing up is, to give something back to your family, you have to become a monk.
Oh, okay.
So I was a monk for a week, and
really?
all we did was, this is actually a great story. So
yeah,
I was
tell
a monk
me.
for a week. I had to shave my head, shave my eyebrow.
I'm right there with you. I could do it. I could do it. Okay.
Just have the eyebrow.
Okay.
So, and it gave merits to your family.
Okay.
Right. And this was the first time my grandmother came from Thailand to visit me, and I was like, oh, this is something I get to do for grandma.
Wow.
And all of that stuff. So it was a week long. Sorry, that was the second time my grandmother came to visit.
Okay.
I was like, all right, it's a week long. So you live in a temple for a week. All you do is you meditate, you clean the temple, and you just meditate. Wow. You eat 2 meals a day. So from that perspective, I really learned how to meditate. I learned how to just like tame myself a little bit through meditation. And
that's a skill set in and of itself.
And ever since then, I meditate every morning. And if I don't, my wife will be like, hey, you need to go meditate. So just always checking in with what's going on in your mind, having the opportunity to reflect on what the voice is saying in your head, really keep me in check.
Well, it seems that you also have the advantage of the accountability partner in your wife.
Yes.
She's going to hold you accountable to the things you've committed to.
Yeah, because she doesn't want to deal with a grumpy version of me.
I don't think anyone does, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that does lead to a really interesting point. Like if you look at even the witnessed business owners that you have, like that the ones that have achieved milestones of success, would you say that all, or at least a large percentage of them, have accountability partners, or does that not even factor in?
I think it's play a huge role.
Okay.
I think the circle that you have that can keep you accountable is fantastic.
It's like a secret ingredient, right?
It is because your circle, right, will call you out on something, but also keep you accountable for something, and also give you courage when you need it.
Right.
Right.
What happens if you don't have that circle, though?
I think it's one of those things where you need to start creating yourself.
Okay.
Become the attractive character where people want to come into your circle.
How do you do that, though?
I think by just being honest, being transparent. I think just being human. The great thing about social media is that you can quickly point out who's being real or not.
Oh, 100%.
And by just not look like, what I love is if you see Gary Vee doing this and it show a real version of him is him doing a talking head with just him, not his hair done, his hat on, like that. People like it way more, right? Yeah. So like
it's authentic.
Exactly. So if you see someone always done up, maybe that might not fit your vibe or your value. But if you find someone that like, oh, that message kind of stick with me a little bit.
Yeah.
So easy to just throw a like and then comment. Like, hey, that's great content. Shoot a DM. And like with us, like when we first met, we stay in contact. We text like, "Hey, when you come to New Jersey, let's grab a meal."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I found so remarkable, at least in my journey, is that the people you surround yourself with absolutely impact your future. And you've made very wise decisions, but not everyone does. Like how can someone really gauge who they should be surrounding themselves with, and then how do they actually go about doing it? And speak in the context of like your audience, the ones that you serve. Like, how could they improve their lives and by surrounding themselves with the right people?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think it's all coming down to if you're gonna take a road trip, you want to go on a journey with someone who's like-minded, that want to go in the same place as you.
Okay.
That will always look out for you from a different angle, and that's okay sharing resources. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think you have spoken on this, and it ingrained in my brain since you said it, where money is infinite. Where it's not a piece of pie, like you said, right? If someone make more, it doesn't mean they take away from you. It's not a zero-sum game. So if you can get into a mindset of like, hey, I'm just giving more value, and if I give advice to these people, I know they can do the same thing for me. But understand that, especially for me, the clinician I connect with, these are people who are ethically driven to do the right thing, try to be a disruptor in a failing model of healthcare that's running by private equity owned, big corporation, choosing, profit over people. And again, I'm not naive. You have to be a profitable business in order to grow. And the way I see it is like the people I connect with the most are the people who just genuinely care, genuinely care about the patient, genuinely care about their staff, genuinely wants to do the right thing, but it's just being beat down and just doesn't know how to play the game of business, right? And again, it's not because we don't know how to play the game, it's because the rule is not explaining to us, right? The fact that I have connection with you and other people in our circle, now I understand the game a little bit more. Like, if you put a monopoly board on here and you don't tell me the rule, there's no way I can win. And again, you're playing against someone who's a banker, who's already cheating, and they know all the rules, which is big corporation. Like, all you have to do is like, all right, how do I smarten up? And what are you going to do? How many business books can you read without accumulating real world knowledge? All we're trying to do is like, if you know someone, and I connect with people who maybe 2 years ahead of me that know what they're doing, and I just like, hey man, tell me where I'm going to get beat up so I can avoid that. Right? I know I'm going to get beat up. Like, just tell me so maybe less punches being thrown. So that way I can, fast track my learning curve a little bit. So now I learn more rules so I can play against the banker, in the monopoly game. And that's all we're trying to do. Like, what I'm trying to do now in my next journey is obviously, besides coaching my team, helping more patients, scale my clinic to the next level by just providing more value, solving more problem for people. I want to help other clinicians who are clinic owners who are stuck, after like hire their third employee, and they just like, I'm pulling back, I'm sacrificing my time for money again, this and that. And big corporation want us to do that, right? Because all they want to do is just absorb that, right? They don't want to hand out the rule book. And all I'm saying, like, hey, this is what I figured out so far. I figured out 1/4 of the rule book. And I'm going to go out and find the rest. But I'll give you the 1/4. When I learn more, I'll tell you more, right? And whatever you figure out from what I gave you, come back and report it. And this is how we grow together, right? So I'm just recruiting people to be on my bus so that way we can go together. And to me, it's taking on big corporation is like zombie apocalypse, where you're going against a zombie, you're going against all this. I love zombie movies, right? So you're going against all these other, like outlaw people that try to take your bus, right? So how do we do this together and protect each other?
Yeah, I think one of the things, like when we had that conversation, I distinctly remember it, the concept of abundance and of wealth, the concept of abundance of money. The way I like to talk about it is almost like relating money and the making of money, like going to the gym. When you go to the gym and you lift weights and you build muscle, you're not taking muscle from anyone else.
Yes.
I mean, that's the reality, because when it comes to money, it does come down to value creation. And when you're creating value, which you have an infinite capability of creating value in the universe of the world, if you will, you have an infinite ability to create value. So therefore, value creation in and of itself doesn't take value from anyone else. It's value creation. Therefore, going out, creating value for others creates infinite opportunities for money coming your way. When you're surrounding yourself with the people who have that right mindset that's similar to yours, your ability to make major strides in your life is just it's unbelievable. Looking at where you're going next, what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges in your the next 2 to 5 years?
I think the biggest challenge for me is not to get too far ahead of my big picture.
Okay.
And not to get too far away from the home base of why I'm doing it for. It's always going back to the why. Because, you and I know that when you get to a certain level, opportunities are coming at you.
Yes.
Hard, fast. And, like Dan Kennedy said, it's like, as you get more successful, every place turns into a strip club.
Yes.
Right? There's just tons of stuff throwing at you, opportunity everywhere. People try to distract you. And it just remember to always double down on my core value. And that's why daily meditation, daily reading, journaling, talk to my wife, talk to my friends, talk to my team. That's always going to be a home base for me. And I need that more now than ever because, again, like I can probably check my DM and I have like all these things. Do you want to open here? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And for me, it's just, again, working on that no muscle, right? And I alluded to my upbringing a little bit, right? And you see, like we came from nothing. We grew up in a 1-bedroom studio, just with my family. So I was ingrained in my head. It's like you got to say yes. Is this money? Go get it.
Right.
Boom, get it. So now I'm fighting that tick. I was like, oh man, I better stop. It's I was
and
like,
that's like the paradox that a lot of business owners don't get. Like when you start saying no, that actually leads to more because if you're saying no to this, that gives you the opportunity to say yes to something else. Or if you're saying yes to the things that matter to you most, saying no to the things that don't give you more fulfillment. When you look at your goals, what would you say are your top 3 goals for basically for the coming year?
I mean, top 3 is always just taking care of my body, taking care of my health. My dad passed away younger, and I'm just like, all right, how do I, there's obviously a genetic component that's stacked against you. So again, going back to saying no, right? Knowing what I know based on the genetic component, how do I not make it worse? So what am I saying no to? So prioritizing my health, because if my bodies feel good, mentally I'm going to feel good, right? So taking care of my body, taking care of my mind. And then back to my core values that I think about every day is deepen relationship with myself, with God, with my wife, with the people around me. So that's the second thing. Third thing, pursue knowledge.
Okay.
It's again, all of these things are infinite.
Yes.
Right? You can always be healthier. You can always have deeper relationship.
Yes.
You can always learn more. So that's my top 3. I try to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay. When you've obviously had some significant success over the course of just the past few years, and more so in recent years. When with success comes money, and oftentimes that's where a lot of business owners struggle too. When it comes to your financial situation, what would you say are some of the best learning things that you've experienced in recent times that have helped you, that not only have helped but continue to help you make good decisions regarding your money?
Yeah, this is crucial for any business owner who wants to grow is that I learned quickly that most businesses die during the growth phase because they overspend.
Yes.
So be mindful of the cash flow is huge. Yeah. And
cash is the lifeblood of a business, but growth eats cash.
Yes.
So you need to make sure you understand how those two things work together.
Exactly. So, rather than throwing money at the problem, figure out, if that problem can be solved with less resources, or how do you solve that problem one time so you don't have to throw money at it again?
Yes.
So that's a huge thing. Another thing too is just really understand like the true cost of operation, how much it's gonna cost, projection, all of that stuff. So that way you can plan accordingly, right? I mean, I had one scare moment 2 years ago where one of the staff that I had didn't deposit pretty much the checks that we were getting reimbursed. It was like $50,000.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm looking at my bank, and this is when all the things was going south, right?
Yeah.
So I was preoccupied with everything. And obviously, when something goes bad, they all go bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I have this happening culturally. I'm running low on cash. Am I about to literally like die? And like business-wise, and this is not like a video game where you're like, all right, I'm just gonna come back, start over, this and that. It's not that. So, just having a post on everything is good, but that's a big thing. Is that for you to have a financial overview, you need to be able to outsource some of your tasks to someone else, right? So, pretty much, you spend money to scale. And you scale by hiring the right personnel so they can do all the other stuff for you. So that way you buy back your time so you can have the oversight on the cash flow. And now you're not going to be cash poor because you have oversight on it, right? Because whatever you put attention to, grow or get protected.
Yeah, it's important to understand your numbers. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like if you got into a car, but it had no fuel gauge on it, and you're trying to take a long distance road trip, that could be scary. Because if you don't know how much fuel you have, you don't know to make the right decisions and when to pull into the fuel station. And the same thing happens in business. I find so many business owners just don't know their numbers. Like if I were to walk into most businesses and just say, what was your profit last quarter? Most people couldn't tell you that. Most business owners, and if you look at the statistic, it's something like 68% of all small businesses fail by the 10th year in business. And a significant reason for that is just a lack of understanding of finance. Financial literacy is not something that's taught in schools. How did you learn it?
Again, through appointing the right mentor.
Okay.
And just really address the discomfort of finance, right? Again, like another thing I always work at is my relationship with money, right? Because my idea of finance in the beginning was like, all right, make more and don't just spend what you make, right? And then the rest is that.
Yeah.
But as you grow in payroll, as you grow in all these other things, you have to budget things accordingly. I'm just like, okay, this is a big dragon I have to tackle, but why don't I just tackle the little dragon first? Why don't I just, hey, what does the payroll needs to look like? How much do we need to make in order to cover this? And then I just do it bits and bits. And once I tame one dragon, I move on to the bigger dragon, then I move on. So it's just building tolerance for it. Again, going to the gym, if I see someone throwing 315 on bench and I haven't trained, I'm not going to jump there.
No, exactly.
So I'm just like, all right, why don't I start baby step? So I think I can always trace back to just going to the gym.
Yes. all the lessons in life, right? All the lessons in life. When you look at how you're currently structured business-wise, like, would you say you're ideally structured for what you want to accomplish, or do you think that there's changes that you'd want to be making going forward?
There's definitely changes I want to make. Just because you and I already talk about like how we want to grow our vision, how many people, who else do we want to help, and with who else that we can help, and and want us to help them, that will then create another business, right? And I think the fact I'm a guest here, I'm going to take advantage of it too and ask you your opinion on this, because obviously I'm getting to business coaching, structuring another LLC, and last time we spoke, you were talking about like, structuring a trust to help protect the downside. So, I mean, I would love to give you the floor so you can explain that.
Well, I think there are a lot of different ways to structure businesses, and there's a lot of different ways to protect yourself. One of the things I say is this: the way I do it. I'm not sure if it's going to be right for you. I'm not sure if it's right for any of the audience members, but what I do is I have trust at the top of everything. Trusts own everything. I own nothing. And there's a few reasons for that. One, there's just an anonymity protection situation, and also from an ongoing legacy issue with regard to my family, making sure that things are always going to be kept in good order for my family, my wife, my kids. But ultimately, my trusts own everything. My trusts own all my personal assets, things like my bank accounts, my automobiles, boats, et cetera, like all the personality, all personal real estate, et cetera. When it comes to the businesses, I layer businesses. So I have a holding company, which owns all of my operating companies. And there's a few reasons for that as well. One's asset protection, making sure that I'm shielded from any type of litigation, creditors, et cetera. But also it creates an ability for us to layer tax strategy on top of it. Because one of the things I'm super passionate about is I really do not like the government. So I don't want to give the government a penny more than I'm required to. So I want to pay the absolute minimum that I'm required to pay when it comes to taxes. And when you layer and structure things the right way, and then layer on top of that actual tax strategies, you get to keep more of every dollar you're making. And you were talking earlier about trying to be smart with the outcome, with your overall effort and energy. You can massively increase profit just by keeping more of every dollar you make.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sit back and you're sending 40 to 50% of your dollars off to governments, whether they're federal government or state governments, I mean, you've put a lot of effort in order to get that 50% that you're sending away. If you can figure out how to keep most, if not all of that, you should definitely invest time doing that.
Yeah, and I love that you took the time to explain that, just because in the world I'm in, right, some of the people I'm talking to that I can help, they always say, how do I get more leads? How do I make more money? How do I do this and this? I'm like, dude, how about we just figure out like how much you're paying. Like that's just huge, right? And I don't know much about that. I just know that there's so many different ways to go about it, and I love the way that you just broke it down. Just again, to answer your question, you clearly know that whatever I'm going in the future, the structure is playing catch up to it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now my question to you is that normal?
So the vast majority of businesses in the United States have no formal structure at all. They're structured as sole proprietorships. I mean, that, like, quite frankly, the vast majority of businesses are structured that way. And quite everyone who's watching should thank them, because those are the individuals that are spending the most money on taxes, which provide for the government operations, et cetera. So thank all the people who don't put a formal structure in place, because they pay all the taxes. When it comes to understanding what to do, though, the real problem is twofold. One, financial literacy is not taught in school, at least not to a degree that it's legitimate. And two, even the professionals that are out there who are supposedly offering guidance aren't really working for you. Like, for instance, I have conversations all the time with business owners, and we're talking about tax strategy, and they'll say, my accountant has that covered. That's the biggest mistake that any business owner can make, because the vast majority of accountants are nothing more than glorified historians. They spend all of their time, their effort, and their energy just trying to figure out how to best tell the IRS what's already happened. It's a backward-looking game. And the reality is, if you want to save money on taxes, you have to be doing things forward-looking. You have to say, what do I need to do tomorrow? What do I need to do next month in order to make sure that my next year is less burdened by taxes? And the vast majority of professionals just don't do that. They're not specialists with regard to being, one, a business owner, but also understanding the tax law.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough that over the course of the past 2.5 decades that I've been in business, I've made a personal commitment to try to figure out how not to give the government any money at all, if I could. But if I was going to end up having to give the government money, I wanted it to be the absolute minimum that I'm required to do it. And there's ways to do that. And there's people out there that pay next to nothing in taxes legally, legitimately. All you need to do is model that.
Yeah.
Figure out what they're doing, model that behavior.
Yeah.
Don't vilify those that don't pay taxes, because the reason why they don't pay taxes is they're just using the tax code as how it's meant. I mean, there's two purposes to tax codes, right? The first is to generate revenue for the government, which obviously the government needs in order to operate. But the second is the tax code's written to incentivize action. So if you understand that, you just read the code as to, oh, the government wants me to do this, and when I do this, it rewards me with tax savings. That's an incentivization program. I'm going to do that because I get rewarded. And everyone does that in life, right? You do the things that give you a reward. We try to avoid pain and we seek out pleasure. Yeah. So the reward concept, that dichotomy of action, though, is what it comes down to. So for me, it's painful for me to give any money to the government. So I'm trying to avoid pain, but I'm also trying to get the pleasure of being rewarded by doing the things that the government needs done. But ultimately, when you look at your life, the challenges that you've had over the course of your career have been overcome by just learning, overcome by saying, I don't know X. I'm going to find someone who knows X, learn from them, and put X into action.
Yeah.
How would you say that has transformed your life? That mentality?
I think it's helped me avoid many more heartaches than necessary. I think it's also helped me leapfrogged, my success in some way, where I was able to just think differently and execute on things faster, just because I have the information ready at hand. Okay. Rather than, most of the time in the, healthcare community, when you look at any research, is you decide a hypothesis, you then go collect the data, and then you analyze the data, and then you come to a conclusion whether the hypothesis is correct or not. So if we're doing that in the medical field, they don't reinvent new study every time. They just go based on this past study. They test this. Oh, we're going to try to test this other hypothesis to see the same thing. If we're doing that in the medical community, which is also slow, why don't I do the same in business, in life, in growth? Why don't I just go to someone, they already did it, take that framework, maybe add a little spin to it on my own. Again, it's like cooking with recipe.
It's art.
Yep.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, all right, how do I make this my own recipe? How do I make this my own framework? What can I add to that? And
Cajun seasoning. Add Cajun seasoning, everything, it makes it better.
Like for me, it's like sazon, right? Like that's super easy. And all it is like, the question I always ask is, if this is successful, how do I make it successful for my business? Mm-hmm. That's always my framework. I'm not questioning whether it's gonna work, mm-hmm. I'm also really good at not getting myself into any limiting beliefs trap where like, this is not gonna work because I'm in this city, mm-hmm. no one's gonna pay for this. Oh, 3 people down the block is doing this already. This is not gonna work. Mm-hmm. I always go like, all right, how do I make this work for me? Mm. What do I need to do to make this work for me? And what problem am I solving mm-hmm. by addressing this? Like, and I'm at the point where I'm not just doing things for sake of doing things. Mm-hmm. And I was just listening to Dan Kennedy on my way here. He's like, you know, in the past, this thing where I discover unintentionally, but going forward, that thing become intentional.
Yes.
And that's always in my, how do I make that unintentional thing become more intentional?
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
What I love to do right now is every guest I bring on this show, I like to engage in a almost like a thought exercise. Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take you down this little scenario.
Okay.
I want you to imagine for a moment that you have the ability to go back in time to visit a younger version of Natty. So you're going to go visit yourself at some point in the past. Mm-hmm. What I'd want to know is what version or what age, what scenario are you going back to? And you have the ability to just share one piece of information. What piece of information would you share?
I would probably go back to 2019, like right after I just lost my dad.
Okay.
And the information I was going to share is pretty much saying like, hey, you know, things happen for a reason. Mm-hmm. And someone said this to me, and it's super powerful. It's like, for every prince to become a king, mm-hmm. the previous king has to die. And that's just part of the evolution. So within that framework, I would then say, keep that in mind. How would you step up to the plates? Not just from my dad's legacy, not even from my legacy. It's just from what can I add on to what he taught me, and what can I add on to what I learned now? And when it's my time, right, when there's a new king, new queen needs to come up, how can I prepare that individual so that way they can add on to that?
I love that. Okay. There's a second part to this thought exercise.
Okay.
What I'd like you to imagine now for just a moment is that a future version of Natty has come back in time to meet with us here in this setting, in this moment, and he's going to share something with you. What does he share?
You know, it's just Back to the Future, like Doc Brown comes back.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
I would say probably keep going and just doubling down on what you believe in, your core value, and just let that be your North Star.
Wow. So 2 versions of Natty, previous version and the current version, have both gotten nuggets of wisdom from Natty.
Yeah.
But I don't want the audience to feel left out. So what one piece of information that you think could be most transformative to anyone who's watching, anyone who's listening, what piece of information would you love to share?
I would love to share that each individual should spend time identifying what it means to be successful. Because often society, social media, other people define that for us. And when it's defined for you, you will end up chasing someone else's goal and not your own. So if you can define that for yourself, then you can truly look and measure your own success based on your own standard and not living someone else's dream.
I'm 1,000% going to steal that.
Yeah.
Because that's phenomenal. I mean, if you allow someone else to define your success, you end up living their dream. I love that.
Yeah. I wrote it on my tweet this morning.
I'm stealing it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'll give you credit, though.
I love it.
That's an amazing concept. Like, anyone who's watching this and listening to this, that in and of itself was definitely worth the investment of your time. And I appreciate you being so willing to share authentically. How can someone reach out and connect with you? Like, what's the best way for them to follow your journey, to get into your ecosystem?
Yeah, on all platforms on social media, Instagram, Dr.Natty, DOCTOR.NATTY, TikTok's the same. Actually, YouTube is where I'm putting all my long form video out, especially if you're a business owner that happen to be in healthcare. I think, and you want to go on the same journey, same ride, you know, battling the zombie apocalypse together, please connect.
I love it.
And I really, I have to thank you, man, for pushing me to come here.
Yes.
You extended the invite 2 months ago, and the fact that you did that is always in the back of my head. And, you know, because of that, we made this happen. Your team has been great. Just to see what you accomplish here, what you do, really, again, gave me something to emulate. And that's all I'm about. So I appreciate you pushing it forward, passing all the nuggets. And every time I talk to you, man, it's always great. We can probably do this for like 3 hours.
At least 9 more, I think,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Well, it's definitely been a pleasure. I know everyone who's been watching at home, who's been listening at home or in the car ride, I know you've gotten significant nuggets of wisdom. And please, if you've loved any moment of what you've seen, hit that thumbs up, hit the like button, subscribe, because ultimately it's not just benefiting us, it's also benefiting you, because no matter what platform you're watching this on, when you like it, you're telling the algorithm the type of information that you want to consume, whether it's our information or information like it. So it's benefiting you as well. I wish you well in your journey. Can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye for now. Natty, that was so awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you so much.
Yeah.
Your story is amazing.
Oh,
like everything that you do is just like through the roof awesome.
No, I appreciate it, man.